Hi, I'm Mike B, and this is the Extended Hand of Humanity. If you start a podcast that covers politics with the goal of not alienating or offending anyone, you're on a fool's mission. And to be honest, that was the direction that I came extremely close to traveling down. You see, because I had family members, loved ones, and close friends that viewed Donald Trump as the second coming, and I didn't want to alienate any of his followers that might listen to fact and reason, I was positioning myself to do exactly what I was so angered by the news media on all platforms doing, particularly the so-called mainstream news media. So what was it that they were doing that angered me and still does? Not calling a blatant lie a lie, and allowing and enabling misinformation to be assimilated without challenge. And, excuse my language, providing a well-lit, soft landing pit for bullshit. This, in my opinion, played a key role in Donald Trump becoming president the first time. That and, of course, the election of Barack Obama. And here we are 4 years later, and this is still an issue, which, once again, has contributed to him being elected. I'm not foolishly suggesting it was the only reason, but suggesting that it didn't contribute would be equally foolish. Let me be as honest and as straightforward as I can and not mince words, and not repeat the errors of our mainstream news media, whose actions aided in the predicament we find ourselves in once again. To be clear, I don't think most of them did it with malicious intent, but that does not negate the fact that they did it or that it contributed to the situation that we find ourselves in. I think what they did and continue to do is to play it safe, so as not to come off as being biased toward one side over the other. But because they shielded much of what Donald Trump said and did from the American people, and took the IN out of insane and sane-washed what they did report on, they misled us and they let us down. And they did not accomplish their goal of being unbiased because that act alone created bias. Donald Trump, without cause, accused them of being biased because they initially called him out on his lies and slandering of anyone that opposed him. And as not to alienate his followers, many of whom are their viewers, they allowed him to control the media. And if you control the media, you control the narrative. And he controlled the narrative because they reacted by not reporting on him accurately from that point on. They got rope-a-doped, and he played them like they were a Stradivarius. And as a result, a lot of American people got played as well. Figuratively speaking, by them not calling a duck, even though it looked like a duck, walked like a duck, and quacked like a duck, and suggesting that 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4, had to have some people wondering if up is up, down is down, and if the earth is actually round. Their job is to report the news, not to selectively report the news based on what they deemed appropriate or inappropriate to repeat, and most certainly not to act as an interpreter. By not telling the American people exactly what Donald Trump said, or letting us see and hear the words directly coming from his mouth, and instead providing their interpretation of what they believe he might have meant, and by repeatedly engaging in false equivalencies to make things equal that clearly were not, to once again not appear to be biased toward one side over the other, was and continues to be a huge disservice to the American people. They failed. There is no other way to put it. Who, what, when, where, and sometimes why. And I say sometimes why because when reporting the news, why should never be provided if it is an opinion or interpretation. All they had to do was stick with the 5 W's. The truth is only complicated if your goal is not to reveal it. They owe us all an apology, particularly those sorry souls who unwittingly voted for him, who now find themselves in the untenable position of FAFO, F around and find out. But again, to be completely honest and to keep it real, most of those who voted for him knew exactly who he is and what they were getting. And the hate and chaos that is likely to follow is what they were hoping for and voting for. I'm not a reporter. I'm a citizen. My views are based on observations and available information. and my available information and observations going back to long before he entered politics tells me that once again, we elected a leader to the highest office of the land of low moral character who is not guided by the principles of equality, fairness, justice for all, who does not embrace democracy, but instead sees it as a roadblock to his agenda. He will surely fill the government with like-minded individuals. Such a leader won't hire based on competency or the desire and ability to best serve the American people, but instead based on loyalty to him and the willingness to do as told, regardless of whether it is unlawful or immoral. Grifters who will aid in the fleecing of America. Historians may one day speak of this as the heir of the grift, the ravaging of America. The potential damage that is done could easily take decades to correct, and sadly, that might be the best case scenario if we don't do all that we can to prevent it. I've noticed an alarming trend among some young people and older folks as well, saying they don't care about the character of their president or elected officials. Just by virtue of the fact that they think this is debatable gives me little reason to believe that any logic or example based on present and past outcome presented will not fall upon deaf ears. And spending any time debating with them or attempting to win over the very small few that are persuadable is time better spent building a coalition of those who understand the importance of character and common decency. So for all those Americans that feel that way, you will get no debate from me. No attempt will be made to change any of your beliefs or opinions. I will accept that you are who you are, and you aren't the Americans I'm trying to reach out to. And you have no desire to be a part of the coalition of pro-democracy Americans. Instead, you are the Americans who want to keep a mindset alive that has always and will continue to hurt America, where greed, selfishness, and selective rights and freedoms are more important than character, fairness, equality, empathy, compassion, and humanity. Those willing to sacrifice these principles for a bogus promise of lower grocery prices and cheaper gas. The next 4 years are going to be tough and things are going to get rough. But we must stay strong because enough is enough. I'm Mike B, and this is the Extended Hand of Humanity.